Thank you for coming back for the final session of the day. Before we get started, one of the great things about MAPPS meetings in person is that after you get done speaking, you always get caught out in the hallway by somebody that wants to talk a little bit more. So I just had a conversation with Renee Walmsley and Brenda Burrows out in the hallway. And they said they would be happy to continue to be the membership committee leadership, although they don't want to rob anyone else of the opportunity. So if anyone is interested in becoming the chairperson, they are continually looking for help. But over the next month or so, we're going to put something out about forums, committees, about leadership and getting more involved. We talked a lot about sponsorships today. While we have been in session, we had confirmation from Atlantic and Quantum Spatial of their sponsorships for various aspects of our virtual dialogue series. And we got confirmation from Regal that they are being one of the sponsors for the MAPPStoberfest. So thank you for those firms. At this time, we would like to call the MAPPS 2020 annual business meeting to order. There does appear we do have a quorum. So I will report that there is a quorum. I would like to remind everybody that MAPPS has an antitrust policy and all of our MAPPS business follows this policy. I would like to name Casey Francis as parliamentarian for this meeting. And at this time, I would like to once again introduce MAPPS Board of Directors. Typically, the MAPPS Board of Directors is up in front on a stage in front of everybody. Unfortunately, that's not possible here, but we do want to recognize that these are the folks that are maintaining MAPPS business through the year. President-elect Bob Hanson from WGI, Secretary Treasurer Robert White, White Star Corporation, Past President Brian Raber, American Company, Director John Koppel, Sanborn Mapping Company, Director Jim Van Rins, Regal USA, Director Mike Miser, Wolpert, Director Paul Bader, GPI Geospatial, Director John Boding, Surdex Corporation, Director Ken Scruggs, Midwest Aerophotography, Director Mike Tully, Aerial Services. Again, please recognize these individuals for all of their efforts they put in throughout the year. A little bit of housekeeping. We're going to do some voting today. A couple of months ago, the MAPPS Board of Directors approved a resolution that allows us to vote virtually. There wasn't anything in our bylaws that said we couldn't, but there wasn't anything in our bylaws that said we could. So we were advised that a resolution was necessary. That resolution passed. What we didn't talk about was exactly how to do it. So what we are going to do, I will ask for a motion. I need someone in the chat to make the motion. I need someone in the chat to second. And then I'm going to ask all in favor, and you can just yell aye. And then I'm going to ask if anyone's opposed. If you oppose, chat nay. So that's the only way we're going to know if there is any opposition. And I will make the determination on if there is any type of majority in opposition. Hopefully that is clear, but we're going to use the chat for this. At this time, I would like for Secretary Treasurer White to review the 2019 business meeting minutes.
Hello, everyone. Let me just share the minutes here. And, oops. Mark has asked me to read these, and I will, let's see, read them aloud. This was held July 16th, 2019 in Deer Valley Resort in Park City, Utah. Welcome, call to order, introductions. Rayber called the meeting to order at 11 a.m. Mountain Time and reported that a quorum is present. Rayber introduced the board of directors and thanked them for their contributions throughout the year. Rayber introduced the MAPPS staff. 2018 business meeting minutes. Miller reviewed the 2018 minutes. This was moved, seconded, and carried to approve the 2018 business meeting minutes as presented. Financial report. Tom Newman presented the 2019 year-to-date financial report as of July 16, 2019, and the 2018 year-end financial report. There was a motion that was moved, seconded, and carried to approve the 2018 year-end financial report and the 2019 year-to-date financial report as of July 16, 2019. President's report. Rayber reported on the 2019 year-to-date accomplishments, including implementation of association best practices, streamlined financial operations, implementation of policies, social media development and growth, increased membership engagement, launching the Ascent and Associate Partner programs, the new combined GeoWeek format, increased promotion of excellence awards and winners, record-breaking attendance, and financial profit from the federal programs, monthly board teleconferences, legislative efforts on Capitol Hill, government service award presentation, Brooks Act procurement efforts. Proposed bylaws changes. Brooks presented the following proposed changes to the bylaws. In Article 5, Section 1, changed the number of directors from 10 to 11 and added that the past president shall be the 11th director and shall serve as an ex officio non-voting director for a term of 2 years. In Article 6, Section 1, changed the executive officers to a president-elect, a secretary-treasurer, and a past president. Add, the past president shall be the immediate past president and shall hold the position for 2 years. If the office of past president becomes vacant, the position may be filled by a prior past president. In Article 6, Section 4, past president, the past president shall have such powers and duties as shall be assigned by the president or the board of directors. The past president shall be a non-voting position. In Article 6, Section 5, the secretary-treasurer shall be responsible for custody of all funds and securities of the corporation and will perform such duties as assigned by the board of directors. The secretary-treasurer shall perform all acts usually incident to the office of treasurer, subject to the control of the board of directors. The secretary-treasurer shall give such bond for the faithful discharge of the secretary-treasurer's duties as the board of directors may require. The secretary-treasurer shall see that all notices are duly given in accordance with law and the provisions of these bylaws. The secretary-treasurer shall be the custodian of the records and of the seal of the corporation. The secretary-treasurer shall see that the corporate seal is affixed to all documents, the execution of which on behalf of the corporation is duly authorized, and when so affixed may attest the same. And in general, the secretary-treasurer shall perform all duties ordinarily incident to the office of the secretary-treasurer, as well as such other duties as from time to time may be assigned by the board of directors or by the president. Remove Section 6, which described the treasurer position. In Article 7, added Section 4, Ethics Officer. The board of directors shall appoint an ethics officer to enforce the code of ethics. The ethics officer shall have such powers and duties as shall be assigned by the president or the board of directors. The ethics officer shall hold the position for 2 years. In summary, 3 changes. 1, added the past president position to the board. 2, combined the secretary-treasurer position. 3, created the ethics officer. This was moved, seconded, and carried to approve the proposed changes to the bylaws. Board of Directors elections. Rayber thanked Kelly Francis for his efforts leading the nominations committee. Francis presented the nominations committee and the slate of nominations. Mark Brooks, president, 2-year term. John Koppel, director, 2-year term. Bob Hanson, Director, 2-year term. Mike Miser, 2-year term. Paul Bader, Director, 2-year term. Ken Scruggs, Director, 2-year term. Moved, seconded, and carried to approve the slate of nominations as presented. President's recognition. Raber thanked outgoing directors Newman, Schubert, and Ward. Adjournment was motion to adjourn, moved, seconded, and carried to adjourn the meeting at 11:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Those are the minutes for 2019 business meeting.
Thank you very much, Robert. I will entertain a motion to approve the 2019 business meetings minutes as presented. We have a move. Do I hear a second? Thank you for the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. In the eyes of the chair, the ayes have it. Motion is carried. The 29 business meetings minutes are approved. At this time, I would like Secretary Treasurer White to present the Treasurer's Report for 2019 year-to-date, 2020 year-to-date, and 2019 year-end.
All right. So, okay. So, this is the simplest slide, and this is our current assets. So, we have $76,841 in assets right now. And that's kind of I'll start out with the bottom line, which is reverse what usually you see. Let me back into this a little bit. Let's go to the next slide, the EIDL loan. And MAPPS had an opportunity to take, let's see, just click on number 3 there, Mark.
So there's assets. Which slide do you want?
Slide 3, the next one.
The loan slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you not see the loan slide?
Not yet.
I can see it.
They're seeing it, yes. Everyone else, we're seeing it.
Huh. Okay.
Maybe, Robert, if you have the slide deck yourself, maybe you can refer to it on your computer and Mark can be
Okay,
sharing
yeah,
it.
we'll do that.
Because we're all seeing it.
Okay.
Read the title of the slide that you're reviewing, Robert, as you go through it so Mark can follow along.
Okay. I think the problem is, okay, here we go. So this is the EIDL loan slide, the slide number 3. And so what I'm going to do is really give this over to Mark for discussion. We had an opportunity to take an EIDL loan during the pandemic, and I wanted to have Mark talk about, how we approach this. And Mark, I'll just turn it over to you to discuss this.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. So if you participated in our webinar series at the beginning of the pandemic, we talked about the CARES Act, and we talked about other types of loans that were available to small businesses, to nonprofits, to whoever. And we came up with the idea that MAPPS could actually receive a economic injury disaster loan because of all the revenue that we lost for not holding our federal programs conference, for not holding our summer meeting that at that time we thought we were going to probably miss out on, and because we had a number of members tell us they may not be able to pay their upcoming dues. So we had a large amount of revenue that we knew we were going to be losing. So we applied for the loan. We justified it by mentioning that lost revenue, as I just said, and we were approved for a loan up to $150,000. The board had a lot of conversation back and forth about accepting it. For a number of years, we've carried a balance on a credit card, and we've never really been able to pay that off. Well, you're not allowed to use the EIDL to pay off past debt. However, we had enough money inside of MAPPS to be able to pay off that credit card, which was a very high interest rate. I think we were paying about $600 a month, most of that in interest. So we had enough money in our coffers to be able to pay that off and take this loan amount and use it for operations going forward. Those operations going forward, to do conferences, to pay SMG, to pay PPG, to just operate as needed. We our original money in the EIDL loan, though, so we have created a separate account for that new money, and that's how we're going to be able to manage those things to ensure that we use the money properly. Robert?
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. If we go on to the next slide.
Okay.
This slide's entitled the year-to-date comparison. And this compares the last 3 years. And you all will remember we had a big transition into 2018 from our previous management company. But so far, point out some things to you. As you might imagine, in 2020, this is a year-to-date comparison. We're obviously not at the revenue level that we were at this same time in 2019. So, for 2019, we finished out the year at $632,921 in revenue. And in 2019, we finished out our expenses at $469,296. And then the profit loss is the difference of $163,625 for 2019. So far, year to date in 2020, we've had, as I mentioned, the income year to date, $471,777. I think this is a real telling number. Expenses year to date, $269,275. Well, we had our winter conference. We did not have our federal partner conference, and and for some other reasons that Mark will talk about in a minute, we've been able to really hammer down the expenses while we figured out what we were doing. Which so far year to date has left us on the upside at $202,502. Let's look at the next slide.
Okay.
I'm trying to get that to show up on mine too. And this is year-to-year comparisons. So the tricky thing here, this is how we ended up. 2019 was at $690, $599. Expenses at the end of the year were $614, $393, and we ended up with a profit in 2019 of $76,206. Forecasting, as you might imagine, for the end of 2020 is tough because there's several things we don't know yet. We're doing a new business model, as you are all beginning to experience with this virtual meeting. So we don't know how that will turn out. So what I've done is just basically given you a range of possible income numbers. Now, our Stringfellow management group has prepared two cash flows for us. One, assuming that we don't get renewals of membership fees, which is obviously not going to happen, and another one assuming full membership fees renewals. And so that's the 502 versus the 750 for the year. Expenses by the year end, it's looking like this will be a fairly stable number at $400,000, barring any new expenditures. And the profit year to date, it's going to swing widely, depending upon what we do or don't do. So those are the ranges, and I realize they're really huge ranges, but that's really the best we can do right now because of all the unknowns. A couple things I wanted to point out. We have 89 members contrasted with 110 members last year. So that's a change. We didn't have Federal Partner Conference in 2020, as you all know. The new business model, as I mentioned, approximately $50,000 that have been paid for the Federal Partner Conference. We've got to figure out a strategy that's acceptable to us and to the general membership for what we're going to do with that money. That could potentially become a liability. Strategies, we need to act conservatively, minimize expenses, weather the storm. It sort of feels like we've done that, and now I don't know, I'm always an optimist and an entrepreneur, so I always see the bright side. Remember that. But I think the organization has done a really good job of this. And I want to turn it over finally to Mark Brooks for some final comments, and he's going to discuss some of the strategies we've taken on reductions.
So back in March, when our federal programs conference didn't happen, and we knew we were going to lose revenue. As Robert said, we already had people who had prepaid things for that. We figured we were going to have to push money back. We had members start to tell us they may not be able to make, their half of a year that they still had to pay for their dues. We knew cash was going to be a problem. So then along with the summer conference not happening. So we did two things. We asked both Stringfellow Management Group and Prime Policy Group for a reduction in fees. Of course, a reduction in fees also comes with a reduction in services. But both of those organizations agreed to work with us. We knew that a lot of the work that gets done on Capitol Hill wasn't going to happen. So Prime Policy Group, their fee that they charge us was reduced significantly. Now we do still have calls with Stephen Bailey on a regular basis. However, he's not going to the Hill on our behalf, on an every day, every week basis. Same for Stringfellow Management Group. You are still seeing things come out of MAPPS headquarters, but some of the planning that we do, some of the other work that an association management company usually does has not been happening. Basically, it's membership coordination and all of the accounting has still been ongoing. But for the months of April through September, both of those organizations, their fees were reduced, and they will be back online beginning in October. Basically what this does is, if we weren't to receive any funds from members for membership dues in the last quarter of the year, we still make it through the year. So we don't need any further incoming money to make it through the year. And those reductions saved us a little over $100,000, if I remember correctly. So those are the two big things that the board did in order to save cash for the year as we went through the pandemic.
All right. So I think it's basically back to you. I'm the outgoing treasurer. Mike Tully will be, well, if he's elected, will be taking over the next take over the position, and I really appreciate the opportunity to serve in the meantime. So, Mark, back to you.
So do we have any questions on the treasurer's report? Mike Tully wants me to tell a joke. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Need somebody to motion? There's a motion. Do I hear a second? There's a second. All in favor, yell aye. Aye. All opposed,
Aye.
nay. Okay, I don't see any nays, so the motion is carried. The treasurer's report is approved. So now I'd like to provide a short president's report. I think I've already talked enough today. I'm probably over my limit, but we'll go ahead and do that. You know, as we already said, MAPPS, we've had a number of accomplishments since our last business meeting last July. We organized and hosted a GIS Day celebration where we partnered with 4 other organizations. Those organizations were AAG, AASG, ACEC, and NISJIC. Never before has MAPPS ever really reached out and engaged other organizations to celebrate something as a whole. We've done some things with conferences, but we've never done anything with a clear goal in mind of bringing together organizations and the federal government. That GIS celebration, they also announced the House GIS Working Group. So that was kind of a reason that we wanted to do that. MAPPS wrote letters on behalf of our members to a number of federal agencies to fight government competition and to promote QBS as the standard procurement model. MAPPS wrote letters to Congress outlining our priorities for COVID-19 packages. MAPPS wrote letters to Congress requesting support for an exemption that applies to FAA Part 91 non-commercial operations during an air traffic control shutdown. Luckily, we didn't really have to live through that. MAPPS conducted educational webinars focused on supporting our member firms during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. Those are some really great webinars. And we held a very successful winter meeting in Honolulu. You might say we had one last hurrah before the pandemic. And anytime you see John Antelovich on stage in a grass skirt, you know it's a party. As we said, like all organizations, MAPPS has had some challenges. Due to the pandemic, our federal programs conference and summer meetings were both canceled, and these cancellations put tremendous pressure on our finances. The Treasurer's report included measures that the MAPPS Board of Directors took to ensure the financial health of our organization, including the reduction in services from both Stringfellow Management Group and the Prime Policy Group. The EIDL helped us recover from some of our lost income from those events not being held. And I'm happy to report that MAPPS does have a good financial foundation and our financial position is getting better. One other thing that the MAPPS Board of Directors did is for most of the year, we worked on a revised strategic plan. If you ever reviewed the MAPPS strategic plan previously, it had a number of goals, it had a number of objectives, it had all kinds of wording. So one of the things we wanted to do was reduce the plan down into something that we could manage. Earlier this month, the board approved a new strategic plan, and I'd like to ask Mike Tully to present the plan at this time.
All right. Hi, everyone. I currently serve on the board of directors and helped, as Mark said, with the directors to update and revamp this plan. Since last winter's meeting in Hawaii, the board has been working on updating the plan. We finished that work, adopted the plan, and would like to spend a few minutes with you reviewing this plan and how it differs from the previous strategic plan. I don't know if you remember, but at last winter's meeting, many participants filled out a survey about our strategic plan, asking things like, what's the real value of your membership? Is MAPPS advocacy for small and large businesses balanced? The survey addressed tensions about advocacy as our members' professional and business profiles proliferate. You know, should we advocate for small or large business or the entire geospatial profession? Things like that. We asked things like, is our emphasis on education of members well-founded? So the insight from this polling was used to guide our revisions to this 2020 strategic plan. So let me share my screen real quick. You should see it about now. Somebody affirmed that you can see my PowerPoint presentation.
Let's go ahead and go into play mode.
All right, good. So the major change to this plan was the elimination of redundancy. We tried to eliminate the chaff and reinforce the metal of this baby. As you can see, these stats are kind of interesting. The previous plan was about 3 pages and 2,000 words long with 7 goals and 79 bullets. That's all been eliminated, reduced. A lot of that was redundant to just a 1-page document with 3 main goals, 8 instead of 19 objectives, and just 3 detailed bullets. Our previous mission statement was there on the screen to promote the geospatial business and the worldwide economy and professionalism in its practice. We've changed that slightly, being very careful with our wordsmithing to promote and advance economic opportunity, networking, education, and professionalism within the geospatial community for our member firms. The previous value statement was quite lengthy. It's there on your screen. What's not shown is another 8 bullets, another 133 words. That's all been replaced with a shorter statement that I'll let you read, but still includes the core commitment and the core values that MAPPS represents today and has always represented about business, about networking, advocacy, and education of our members. Our previous plan had 7 goals. The new plan has 3. Everything that we were doing in the previous plan is pretty much consolidated and restated in a far simpler plan and in those 3 abbreviated goals. So really what's next is for us to work the plan. It takes all of us, all the members, to keep MAPPS relevant to ourselves and to the geospatial profession. The board has adopted this plan. It will be up on the MAPPS website for your review. And please, if you have any comments about it, please make them to the board, any of us on the board, and we'll be happy to consider them. But it's incumbent on all of us to work the plan and keep ourselves relevant and effective in the things we want to accomplish. Mark, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. I'd really like to say thanks to Mike Tully and Bob Hansen. They spent a lot of hours going through various revisions. The board spent quite a bit of time in our monthly calls on these revisions. So once again, please review, make any comments that you would like. They will be on the MAPPS website. Our next order of business is our board of directors elections. Mitch Long from GRW was our nominations committee chairperson. I'd like to ask Mitch to provide the nominations committee report.
All right. Well, I guess to start with, I'd like to thank the committee members that served on the committee with me. They were Jim Brainerd from REY Engineers, Aaron Shepers from Cornerstone Mapping, Carlos Preto from Survey Tech Solutions, and Jeff Lauer from IIC Technologies. We received several letters of interest, and we met a couple times and went through all the qualifications and letters of interest, and we would like, the committee voted, and we'd like to put forth the following names for the MAPPS membership to vote on for the 3 open seats on the board. They are Mike Tully with Aerial Services, Inc., John Bowden with Surdex, and Brian Mayfield with Atlantic. Both Mike and John are incumbents and are serving right now, and Brian would be a new addition to the board. That's pretty much it, other than I'd like to thank everybody that gave their time to this with the committee members. I'd also like to thank everybody that sent in letters of interest. I would encourage you to continue to put in letters of interest if you didn't make it this time. And I would also like to encourage everybody that didn't put anything in letters of interest this time to put them in next year. There'll be 5 board seats open. And from experience, the board is a very good time to serve the industry and the MAPPS Association. So I would encourage everybody to look forward to next year to putting your name in the hat for a board seat. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Mitch, for that report. Thank you for your work. You know, the process was for the nominations committee to do their work. We did have nominations from the floor open until August 1st. There were none. So at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to accept the nominations committee recommendations to elect Mike Tully, John Bodine, and Brian Mayfield to the board of directors. Do I have a motion? There's one motion. See a second. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. See no nays. The Mr. Bodine, Mr. Tully, Mr. Mayfield have been elected to the board. We did get a question is, do we still have an associate member representative on the board? Yes, Jim Van Rens is still the associate member. We don't do a election for the associate members representative. That's an appointed by the associate members. So we expect that membership to take the vote on their own behalf at one of their meetings. So thank you, Mike and John, for your continued service. Brian, congratulations for becoming our newest board members. I'd really like to recognize Robert White for his service to MAPPS in the past few years. As Secretary Treasurer, he's been pretty busy. He's had a lot on his plate. I'm going to miss having Robert on the board. Thank you very much, Robert. That is all we have. I'd like to open it up to anyone if they have any final business they would like to discuss or mention. Put a Q&A in. Okay, I don't see any further business. So this concludes the MAPPS annual business meeting. Thank you for attending. Hope everyone continues to attend the MAPPS Digital Dialogue Series. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Somebody please motion. There's a motion. I need a second to adjourn. Get a second. We're going to say that motion is carried. MAPPS annual business meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for participating. Hope to see you in about a month during our next digital dialogue. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to reach out to any of the board members. Goodbye.